one thing I want to talk about that's really helpful is, a lot of times when people are making process maps, they overcomplicate it and they add essentially what I would call stages. So new form submission comes in would be stage 1. Then we make a call, stage 2. Then we schedule a meeting, stage 3. Then we send a calendar invite, stage 4. Then we go to the meeting, stage 5. And then you keep going and going, and it's broken up too much. And while that may be valuable for like a flow chart for training purposes, for someone to understand exactly how it works, maybe even for our systems that people may follow for like an SOP, those may be valuable. But in terms of the process and just checking the process and having clear triggers that show, hey, someone needs to do something here or someone's responsible for this stage, it's too much. And when you have an complicated process with too many stages, you end up making it too much to manage. And it's really hard to start tracking a lot of things. And so whenever you think about the stages of a process, you really want to focus on where are the biggest triggers and action points for your team. Like making a phone call and scheduling a meeting is kind of the same thing. They're doing that during this. You don't need to break that into 2 steps. And so basically, like if you're talking about a sales process, you may have a stage for new lead. And that can mean several different things. Someone called, someone submitted a form, someone showed up in person, someone was at an event. Those can all be new leads, and it's the same thing. And one person's responsible for all new leads that come in, right? And then you have maybe a scheduled meeting. So someone's responsible for going to that scheduled meeting. Then from there, you're going to need a quote or an estimate or a bid. That would be the next stage. And that can be for a variety of services. It can be a lot of different things, but we know that someone's responsible for getting that quote done. Then from there, the quote's been sent and someone's responsible for the follow-up. Then if it's approved, we're going on to drawings or whatever, but just break it up into bigger chunks, not too big where it's like, hey, quote needed, but there's no follow-up process. There's no meeting. There's no who's responsible for gathering the information and calling and following up. Like break it down into chunks that have clear action items that someone can be responsible for when you're doing your process mapping.
I think you just hit a thing I wrote down to say, and you just said it. They need to be in chunks that an individual or a group of individuals by name are responsible for. Mm-hmm. And early on in the process, you don't have to tell them exactly what a quote needs to look like, although maybe you should on that. But you don't have to have all the detail, but you have to say, those are sitting in the need quote box and they've been there for 10 days and who's responsible for moving them out.
Yeah.
And at the end of quote sent, then it moves on to the next person or process quote follow-up, right? But you have to, big enough that you can understand what the process is, small enough that you can assign responsibility for a person or people to move things out of that box. One thing I really like, and you do it with a lot, I think if I talk about tiles, people will know what I'm talking about.
You're talking about a Kanban system is the formal term.
No, I wasn't going that far.
Okay.
I'm back more simple. I'm talking about if you look at your Google Calendar and you want to move an appointment from today to tomorrow, you grab it and just pull it over.
Yeah, that's right? Kanban. So that's like Trello is a tool for that. HubSpot has pipelines. Several other tools out there have pipelines, Kanban system, whatever it is. But essentially,
I always use Kanban with empty inventory bins. But Kanban system.
Yeah.
Cards that you're at the needs a quote, and there are a bunch of cards below it, stacked up like playing cards with everybody in there. And you can look and see what's there. You can jump into that and see what the individual ones are. And anyway, I crave that. I want to see that for my clients, and I'm not even running their business. What do we got? What do we got? Where are they? What stage? How do we know we didn't miss it? How do it falls through the cracks? And I love, and I don't think all softwares do it, but I love systems that can be reported in the Kanban system by
Yeah.
tiles or cards, right?
Yeah.
So I'll leave you with that. But
No, I think that's one of the most valuable things because the visual is so powerful. And really, you see people do this on whiteboards. I've seen people have columns on a whiteboard in their
right,
office with sticky notes for a project or
yeah,
clipboards
yep,
for a project that hook inside of the columns. And then, hey, we got a new project. It goes inside the new project column. Hey, we're ordering materials. We move the clipboard or the Post-it note to the order
right.
materials column. And then in the office, it's a visual for everyone to see where everything's at, and someone's responsible for each column, and they know exactly the status of each project that they're working on. Same thing, but you're doing it with software. And the benefit of doing it with software over a piece of paper, over a whiteboard, over a basic spreadsheet. You can do all this with spreadsheets, by the way, but you got to be pretty good at Excel if you want to get the most out of it. But with the software, it's going to, for example, if we're looking at sales process and we have 5 cards in the quote sent column. Well, in that column, it's going to tally up the total at the bottom of the column. So we know exactly how much we have out in quotes. Or if we're waiting on deposits. Well, then we've got this much waiting in deposits. We've won these jobs and we need to go produce them. This is how much we've won this week or this month or this year. And you can, filter it by salesperson. You can filter it by when the close date is. You can filter it by projects over 20,000, or there's just so much information that you can gather there that allows you to make better decisions in terms of that process that you're tracking. How can we improve our sales process? How can we improve our production process? How can we improve the install process? But it applies to more than that. It applies to your hiring. It applies to your bookkeeping. There's so many things that you can start to track
Different workflows. Yeah.
if you have the workflows mapped out, and then if you start using a software for each of the workflows that you have. I think a lot of times you're also going to, I've already mentioned bottlenecks, but I guess I can give kind of a clear example. A lot of times a bottleneck for sales teams as they're going through their workflow for sales, a lot of times the bottleneck will either be that they can't get the quotes approved, right? Or another one that I see oftentimes with contracting sales teams is that they don't have a crew available. And so just by looking at those two things, you can make very good decisions. So an example for the ones where the quotes aren't getting approved, it either means that your quote process is outdated or it's too complicated. For a lot of contractor sales teams, especially projects that have a shorter life cycle, they don't take 6 months to complete, but maybe they take 6 hours to complete. The shorter that project life cycle, you should be getting a signature on a quote right away. You don't need to be sending a quote and waiting, for hours or for days to get it approved. You need to be going in person and getting a signature right away. You're either not talking to the right person who can make the decision fast, or you are taking too long to get back to the customer with a quote and to get a response. And so that's really, if you see that that's a bottleneck, man, we've got so much waiting in that quote sent pile, or even the quote needed pile inside of our column in our workflow. Really clear steps there are to go in person, to be faster to get a quote out, and to be more proactive about getting signatures and approval on quotes. So that's just one example of a bottleneck. Being able to see that very clearly inside of your workflow will allow you to make those decisions and take the appropriate actions. Then on the other side,
That's the one where all the cards pile up and they're not moving out.
exactly,
You can see it immediately.
man, we've got 25 cards sitting in quote sent, but only like 3 cards sitting in quote needed, or 3 cards sitting in waiting on final deposit, or whatever it is. Right. The other one where, hey, we've got the quote approved, but we're waiting to get on the schedule, right? So that pending schedule column, whatever it is inside your business, because we don't have crews available, that can show you a few things. One, maybe you need to hire some more crews. Maybe you got to get another truck because you've got so much work backed up or that's ready to go, but it's just sitting in your sales process because you haven't been able to get them on the schedule. That's maybe one answer. But actually, I think what the more common one is that you're not charging enough because you're saying yes to too many jobs to where your crews are backed out for weeks and you can't get to the job soon enough. And if you increase your prices, one, you're going to be making more money, but two, people should be saying no. And if you're not getting people to say no, then you're not charging enough. You shouldn't be able to do every single job. And I know that's kind of hard to hear as a revenue person if you're in charge of sales in your business or whatever it is, but you've got to be increasing your prices so that now your crews are more profitable and you can be a better service provider because you can actually get to the job quicker than the guy that says yes to every single job.